Welcome to lesson 2.7, decimal operations and equations with decimals. So this lesson has two parts to it. First, we're going to be going over how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide decimals, which should be a review for you. And then we're going to take the idea of one-step equations and we're going to put decimals with them. All right, so first, we're just going to talk about how to add decimals and subtract decimals. The biggest thing with adding and subtracting decimals is that you need to make sure that the decimal places are lined up, okay? So that is the biggest key or the biggest point of adding or subtracting decimals, okay? So if we were to add this, we would do 2 plus 1 equals 3, and then 1 plus 7, and then would be 8, carry down the decimal, 5 plus 3 would be 8, and then carry down the 4. And you should get 48.83. Okay, same here with subtracting. We want to make sure that our decimals are there first. The biggest thing that I would say the best option for you is to automatically just carry that decimal down and then add or subtract like you normally would a regular number around the decimal. Just makes your life a little bit easier and you won't have to worry about it. So if you were to subtract these like you would a normal number, you would get 45.17 or 45 and 1700ths. Okay, so if we go on to multiplying, the biggest thing with multiplying is actually that you do not need to line up the decimals. It's not important. All you have to do first is multiply as if they were whole numbers. So you would pretend instead of this being 3.77 times 2.8, you would act like it was 377 times 28. Multiply like you normally would. I'm not going to go into how to do that because you know how to do that. Go down, and then once you get your answer, so in this case it looks like it's 10,556. That doesn't make real sense if you actually think about the actual decimal. So in order to figure out where the decimal place goes, we count the number of spots after the decimal place on both numbers. So we have 1, 2, 3 spots, which means we're going to swoop 3 times. Okay, so we're going to go 1, 2, and 3, and that's where the decimal point shows up. Okay, all right. The last operation we're going to talk about is obviously dividing. So in order to do this, we obviously want to first set the problem up. If we were given 16.9 divided by 6.5, we want to set it up as a long division problem. Then we cannot have this decimal on the outside of our number. We have to move it over. So I'm going to move it over once, okay? But in order to make this still an equivalent equation, I need to move this over once as well. So instead of having 16.9 divided by 6.5, I'm going to have 169 divided by 65. Do long division like you normally would. Oops. Let me kind of show that. Good gracious. Right here. That's how you would do the problem then. Okay. And then you would get your answer, and I'm not going to go into what the actual answer is. Okay? All right, the second part of our lesson is the real important part is actually solving equations with decimals. You're going to use the same properties of equality that you used in the previous concepts when you were doing one-step equations, but this time instead of them being whole numbers, we're just dealing with decimals. Okay, so when you solve this equation, the easiest part to do is just to follow these steps. So we have solved the equation x plus 4.7 equals 3.5. Okay, first I'm going to write the original equation, which I did right here. The next step, I'm going to do the inverse property of, or the inverse operation of what the relationship between x and 4.7 is. Since we're adding, I'm actually going to subtract 4.7, and I have to do that to both sides. So that's my second step, to subtract 4.7 from each side. I then am going to get to a point where these guys, 4.7 minus 4.7 just goes away. So I'm just left with x on this side. And then 3.5 minus 4.7, I'm then going to simplify to get x equals negative 1.2. All right, same idea with this equation. Okay, so we have y minus 6.91 equals negative 2.26. Our first step would be to rewrite the equation. I'm just going to pretend that I already did that. Okay, look at what my property is, or what my operation is, and do the inverse. So I have y minus 6.91. So I'm going to do the inverse operation, which is adding. Whatever I do to one side of the equal sign, I have to do to the other side. So I'm going to get that. These guys go away. And I'm left with y on this side and negative 2.26 plus 6.91, which is y equals 4.65. And that would be my answer. Okay. All right. Same idea when we are doing multiplication and division equations. So I have my equation, negative 0.6m equals negative 5.1. First step, same as adding and subtracting. I'm writing the original equation, which I did right here. The next one is I'm going to do the inverse operation. Right now, the relationship between negative 0.6 and m is that we are multiplying. So I'm going to do the inverse, which is dividing. Whatever I do to this side, I have to do to this side. Okay. These guys cancel out because negative 0.6 divided by negative 0.6 is just 1. So I'm just left with m. And then I'm going to do negative 5.1 divided by negative 0.6, which is simplifying the equation. And I'm going to get m equals 8.5. Because remember, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. All right, one more example. The last example I have for you is n divided by negative 8 equals 1.75. So I have to rewrite my equation, which again, I'm going to pretend that I did. Then I'm going to do the inverse operation of what's happening between n and negative 8. In this case, it's dividing, so I'm going to do the inverse, which is multiplication. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. These guys cross out. I'm left with n on this side. And then I'm going to do 1.75 times negative 8, which is then negative 14. All right, that's all I have for you today. Please make sure you come to class with your notes. Thank you.